Right, good afternoon, everyone. It gives me a great pleasure and honor to be here with you today. I believe that our country has gone through some very important crises over the past years. I mean, for about a decade in memoranda and bailouts and enhanced supervision, and then the pandemic struck. And another global scale phenomenon. I believe that all this made us reconsider much more the workplace framework and to be concerned much faster with sustainable development that goes hand in hand with sustainable employment. And it can't happen in a different way. So something else that we got to realize after the crisis, the health crisis and the financial crises that were linked together, is that nothing can go forward on its own. It's not just state intervention on its own, and the private sector in its own can't go forward either. It gives me pleasure to discuss this framework about what this can mean today, how it transcends, how it becomes action, this sustainable employment, with Mr. Akis Skertsos. He is Minister of State. The government has voted a new bill, and with Mr. Christos Harpantidis, who is Chairman and Managing Director with Papastratos. The company is a, colossal sized company. For Greece, you employ, I think, more than 1,200 people, half of which are women, correct? So I will start with you, Minister. It's been almost 3.5 years since you took office as the government of this country. We're nearing on 4-year mark. What can you say that has changed in the labour market? What was the driving force? What did you discover as a problem? What are the biggest challenges? And what lies ahead? Thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you very much for having me. The previous panel was, in fact, a very interesting one. And I must say that today is an historic day. Today and yesterday, because it marks the end of a very painful course for our country that had entailed a lot of pain, a lot of sacrifice, a lot of hardship. But it was an educational process for all of us. I think that we matured through these difficult 12 years of the, dare I say, it's failure and bankruptcy of the country, from this humiliating monitoring and follow-up by our debtors and our fellow in the EU. But it taught us a lot, and it allowed us to become better. It was announced, the Eurogroup was announced yesterday, that this 12-year supervision and stewardship is over. And it was matched with a release of funds that were still held during the Syriza government, has to do with the debts of the public, the central public banks, and it comes to enhance the revenues. But now, a punishing, I would say, increased interest rate in us paying our public debt is being abolished. So the Greek state, Greek society, benefits to the amount of 6 billion euros as regards the repayment of our debt. And this is a historical date for the new generation, because we know that the higher the public national debt and the higher the interest rates in the repayment, the fewer expenses we can do and we can dispose for our policy and for our social policy and for the future generations. This is one thing. It is the end of an era through which we were hurt, we learned, but we also changed. We managed to transform the country to a great extent. We started very low, concerning where Greece was and where Greece is regarding indicators, with the available income, with the quality of life, the protection of the environment, the operation of public administration. We still have a long ways to go. But over the past 3.5 years, we've been experiencing a country that, using these finite resources we have and going through an historical crisis, fiscal and economic and social, has yielded better results than more robust financially countries. And this was made possible because we tried over these 3.5 years to go back and to circle back to the initial question, is to have and instill a different way of administration, governance, drafting, designing policies, implementing them, that is based heavily on long-term planning, on the vision of where we want to be, of where we want our country to be in the decade to come. This is very important. We don't allow everyday problems suck us in. Of course, it disorients us. And we devote a large chunk of our time to know and to see a country that wants to be innovative, a pioneer, to be constantly pioneering, to enhance and increase the available income, disposable income of the citizens. And this is a significant change. I think it has yielded results. We can see the results in the growth rate of our economy. We have twice as high growth rate than the rest of the Eurozone, 6%. According to estimates, the Eurozone has an average of less than 3%. Next year, there are estimates that the economy will grow at lower rates, but 3 times as fast as the rest of the Eurozone. And this is good, and we're doing something well. And what we do well is that we have given a clear message and a direction in our policy that we want Greece, the Greek economy, Greek labor market, to become more extrovert, more productive, more innovative, and to trust more organized entrepreneurship. This has to do primarily with how employers and employees work. And it does hold water that the Greek labor market had, over time, many problems. It was and still is a hectic labor market with many gray zones, black economy, undeclared labor, exploitation and abuse of the employer's power. It's the power of the employers over the employees. It doesn't have that much to do with the organized companies in our country, but it's a large part of Greek economy that also needs to change their behavioral models, which in turn led to very poor employment and labor relationships to employees who were disgruntled, who didn't see themselves as part of the future of the country. They saw themselves outside of that. It led to brain drain and exit of those people from our country to seek their fortune and their future abroad. These are trends that start being inverted. We see an increasing number of young Greeks, the young generation that left the country over the past few years, to try to find ways to come back, wanting to return, to rebuild their lives in the country, to make their families, to develop and grow professionally. And this is indeed very hopeful. Why is this? Because Greece now becomes an increasingly exporting company. What does that mean? It means that we have companies that are testing themselves and trying themselves in the international markets. So they must uphold and keep specific protocols as regards their presentation, their organization, the creation of their products, how they meet their obligations, etc., which means a better environment to work in, which means better prospects for someone who works in an exporting company. I should note that Greece has better exporting performances than the rest of the south of Europe. That is similar to the performance of Portugal, which is a model country, and slightly less than Germany, which is the heavy exporting economy in Europe. We also see that Greece has better performance regarding innovation, according to the European indicators. Over the past 3 years, Greek companies invest, thanks to the incentives provided by the government, increasingly more in innovation. This, in turn, means that all this generation of new scientists who receive their bachelors from the university will not have to go abroad to find a job. They can stay in Greece and develop and grow within the Greek companies to chase their dreams, go after their dreams, to become productive. At the same time, we invest heavily in what we call work-life balance, which is the equilibrium required between work life and personal life, family life, because we know we have a very serious problem. We have a ticking bomb in the foundation of Greek economy, which is called the demographic problem. We see that Greek families hesitate to have more children because they don't think that they have the appropriate support by the country, and they don't have a support from the businesses they work in. To feel that a young mother, when she will bring a young child into the world, will have the support necessary from their employer and the state alike. What do we do there? Well, we create tools and instruments to provide services to support a young mother and a young father. And they already have a huge part in bringing up and raising their children. We have instituted the neighborhood nannies. We create daycare centers through the RRF funds. We have the 2-year preschool training education so that children can go to school earlier. We create more jobs in daycares with coupons that are subsidized by the state. We expand and enlarge the curriculum and the hours of school. We have implemented a policy that I'm very proud of that creates an extended zone of the all-day school until 5:30 in the afternoon, because we realize that there's a problem, that young working mothers do not go off work at 3:30. So we don't want the school to be a place where people park their children, but we want to have more creative abilities that also allow for mothers to work. And this is a key problem that is a fundamental priority to us. It's to increase the part of participation and the share of participation of women in the labor market, of women, of young people and young parents. These are 3 categories that overlap and that need targeted policies that will allow us to reach the employment levels that we can see in the other European economies. Now, if I may, it brings different balances within the very society. A woman that finds a better job can deal with many other problems that she couldn't if she were financially dependent. In family violence, etc. Yes, to cope to the responsibilities of a child or whatever. Now, financial emancipation of women is how we can have women with more rights, with a better position in society, and to acquire what we have at the legislative level, but not in practice, which is the equality of both sexes. Because we need more women in companies. Because women have proven that they think differently and they do add added value to the companies, and working synergistically in groups and teams, at the end of the day, they create more wealth and more value for all of us. Now, Mr. Harpantidis, the crises that have affected the Greek market are numerous. They are in chain reaction. There have been steps taken by the states. We heard Mr. Skertsos describe them, but it is not enough. We need the contribution of the private sector. Please do tell us what you have done with Papastratos. This, coalition between public and private partner, because for 7 years you are an employer of choice. What does that mean in practice, and how does one go about achieving it? Thank you very much for having me here. Now, if I were to be descriptive, because the Minister was very detailed in describing how the businesses need to deal with today's reality, is more or less what he said. I will just say that, I will just repeat what he said. Joining forces in such a very complicated and complex environment that is financial, geopolitical, etc., is a one-way street. Complex and complicated problems need synthesis to deal with them. We are part of this employment transformation of the country. We do this consistently and coherently, and dare I say, ahead of many others for quite a long number of years, on various axes. I will only mention a few to be brief and respect the time allotted to me. First of all, we are devoted in creating new jobs that are well paid. Now, I was always concerned as to how this can last. I mean, okay, work here, develop, grow, it may have a limit, a time limit. So I'm pleasantly surprised at times. So it has been proven that innovation and investments in innovation beget new investments that beget new jobs, which is an ongoing circle. We are now in the 4th generation of our products that require and request new investments. We have more than 1,000 hirings, recruitments since the year we started. The other day, I went on LinkedIn and I saw an agency that is asking 300 engineers, production technicians. So I rang the people. I said, it's wrong. I mean, there's a mistake. We can't be looking for 300 people. But it's actually true. We're looking for 300 engineers. And the most important part is that these jobs, these positions are very well paid. We're always on the upper 20% as a bracket with a very high first salary, etc. And the benefits that you can imagine we give our employees. The other part was mentioned, and dear Venetia in the previous panel made a personal reference to upskilling and reskilling. So this transformation requires that we change skills and that we ourselves change. And this can only happen by bringing people with skills that we lack from the market, by attracting talents on things we didn't do yesterday. Customer care. So we used to get information, we used to get data scientists, people who, with their skills, their behaviors, and their experiences, help us change. So we have a huge problem of upskilling and reskilling to all of us who stayed, and in a large majority stayed and remained in the organization. We have developed, we have evolved. Last year alone, we had 93,000 hours of training for our employees. And this obviously is ongoing and constant. A third pillar, and I'll just say a few words about that, is the environment you create, the ambiance, is creating an attractive working environment that will embrace difference, to have a productive collaboration, always looking ahead into the future. It's an environment that's pleasant for the employees, but also attractive for the talents that we wish to bring into our company. A key example, a characteristic example, is that despite the talent battle that goes out there, we don't lose people in our organization. Despite the fact that we are up there, up on the mountain, that takes 2 hours of commutes, return commutes at an average, but still people remain with our company for all this value they acquire and they receive from Papastratos. Now, Mr. Skertsos, talking about actions and reactions and consequences, I would like you to talk to us about what you've done as a legislation, what you've already passed, and apart from the passing of those laws, whether all this is actually implemented or not. Let's say, first of all, picking up from where Mr. Harpantidis said that there is no successful business without satisfied employees. It is a key principle in the way someone handles and manages one's staff and achieves and attains the professional and business goals they set. We need to learn to work in a much more collaborative way, to listen to one another, to get in each other's shoes, to see what their needs are, to try to meet them. This is a key principle of human resources management, of people's development and evolution, and we need to understand and realize that we cannot simply look at the short-term profit. Through this development and growth of these people, as was mentioned in the previous panel, everyone stands to gain, and we give more room and more perspective and more prospects to the people who work together, so that to give them the feeling that they also participate in the vision of a business or to the overall national vision and goal. Our policies are all being implemented. I think this is a key thing, and it's imbued in the very DNA of this government. We're interested in efficiency and effectiveness, and the confirmation that what we do is what actually happens. We said we'll do it and we did it, is what the Prime Minister always says, and he means it. In the agency that I supervise, this is what we do, is to confirm that the things that we vote and we pass, and we've passed a lot, it's 350 laws over the past 3.5 years. I mean, you don't just have to pass the laws, you need to implement them. So we do. We have a very good monitoring and follow-up mechanism to make sure that everything is implemented. And it's not just us who say so, it's the European Union institutions, like in yesterday's announcement that actually ascribed and prescribed that actually the government implements reforms. Why is this critical and crucial? To revert and to say what people outside say about us and see it, because, well, sometimes we become entrenched in the microclimate and the micro area and the micro environment, and we miss the bigger picture. And the bigger picture, the forest, is that Greece is transforming. It changes very fast. Maybe faster, at a faster pace than what we can perceive. Maybe because it's a multi-level change, but it is something that is being recorded, primarily by people and secondarily by organizations who have the capability to do overall supervision. When we have big businesses, huge, colossal businesses that trust in our country and say that they will invest billions of euros in Greece, in a country that up until recently was the black sheep of Europe. It drove investments away. We were notorious for being counter-investive and investments not friendly. So when they come and trust Greece, this means that there is a recognition of this transformation process. I will reiterate that it is not something to pat ourselves on the back about. It's not something that we need to tut our trumpets. I mean, we need to do transformation. We need to transform procedures. We need to transform behaviors to harmonize people in the digital world, because there have been leaps forward in digitalization, but the human factor, particularly in the state sector, public administration, need to become in sync with those changes. We need to eradicate those old philosophies and those old mentalities, and I think we're there. With perseverance, with our head on the wheel and our eyes fixed on where we want to go, we can make it happen.
Let me return to you. You are an employer of choice. To what extent have you focused on the issue of inclusion? I'm asking as a mother, as a young woman, how have you been able to integrate women in your operations? The importance of inclusion is highlighted by the fact that we keep on talking about that, and having women involved in the working environment is very important. And although we used to handle that, to manage that as a kind of an ethical duty or obligation of ours or a competitive advantage of ours, no, it's not just a hygiene factor for us, which means you have to be inclusive in order to operate. But it also has to become part of your DNA, of your company's DNA, in order to tackle with the multifaceted world, with this demanding consumer who, for you to tackle your own transformation, you won't be able to make it unless you are inclusive, unless diversity doesn't become part of your DNA. Now, talking about women, Philip Morris International and Papastratos in particular, we've been fighting for that for many, many years. We have more than 41 of our administrative people being women. We used to suffer in the case of factory floor. Production engineers, for instance, we have some great programs that are doing fine. Last year, we employed 12 female engineers. 11 of them stayed with the company. We're really happy with that. We are the only company certified since 2018 as an equal salary company. Equal salary, equal wages, equal opportunities. Currently, for the 5th year in a row, and I think we will do fine this year as well, to claim the same award. And apart from the part of women, we do many, many things there. I think that respect to the needs of our employees is a very important aspect. The minister mentioned the needs of young parents. We have policies in place in the past 3 years for young parents or for parents who adopt a child regardless of gender. We offer a parental leave of 18 months compared to 9 months as provided by law. And apologies, he said 18 weeks, not 18 months. So we have a list of actions that we carry out in order to do what's ethically right and what will also enable us to become more resilient, more adjustable and ready for the future challenges. Dear Minister, what Mr. Harpantidis just said, do you believe that all these things represent reasons why Greeks could return to Greece in order to reverse the brain drain? Do you think it's a lost bet? No, it's far from a lost bet. Do we still have time? Do we still have the space? Yes, of course. I think we have already covered a long way in the past 3.5 years. Let me give you three acts that have been passed already. The first one is the 25 quota for the participation of women in company BODs. I know maybe this is a bit awkward for the business world. Maybe it doesn't sound that well. The fact that we need a quota stipulated in 2022. Yes, I wish we didn't. I wish it could be a bit. We wish our society was a bit fairer, a bit more just. But you have to take certain measures, even by law, in order to enforce this 25% participation of women. Allow me to say, and sorry, but this is my soft spot. The fact that we need a law in order to enforce, to oblige us. The mere fact that we recognize that, the mere fact that there is a law, that there is a quota in place, is a sign of progress, right? Yes, we identify the problem and we tackle it. Yes, but there is an issue of understanding of perception in our country. Yes, quite recently, the Ministry of Labour, Mr. Hatzidakis was here before, an act was passed in order to lift all distinctions against Latki, against the LGBT plus people. If somebody lives abroad and wants to come back and sees that there is no framework of equality and respect of individual rights, he won't come or she won't come. That's why we extended the maternity leave to 8 months also in the private sector, because that was another phenomenon we used to have in Greece. There's a different set of rules applying in the public sector, another one in the private sector. So we're turning that into a level playing field. We recognize rights, we expand certain rights, and we create a better environment or working environment for people. I think this is a very positive environment for people to return. I think it's high time that we closed the session. Thank you very much, both of you. Thank you.